Thomas's childhood had left a map of pain. Every lash of his father's belt, every night locked in a basement crawling with centipedes, had written lessons on his bones. No one comes, no one saves. The woods had watched, always just outside the fogged glass of his window. They'd waited for him to understand that suffering was not but it was an inheritance. Thomas's pursuers were not random wanderers. The two women who gave him the cup marked the beginning of a terrible rite. In these Appalachian woods, legend spoke of groups that hunted the broken, those whose souls had been softened by the agony, the ones ripe for opening. The ritual wasn't just a hunt, it was a ceremony made to fracture the mind and rooted deep into the wild's own. The group painted faces with mud and sap, bodies draped in deer hides, assembling in a clear thick with cedar. Every tree was marked, and it was sigils, crude, eyes gouged deep, symbols twisting in ways that invoked dread and familiarity in those with trauma. The air pulsed with chants, low and guttural, words designed to bleed into the physique. Before the hunt, they read from a book sewn of animal skin and stitched with hair, perhaps from their own victims. The leader, an ancient woman with hands knotted as roots, smeared Thomas's name in ash across stone, intoning, "The one knows the dark, let us show him that the wood remembers." They built effigies from bone, some shaped like children cowering, some like men wielding belts. Each was hung from branches, swaying in sync with the wind, so Thomas would see them as he fled and remember every moment of suffering. Their chase was never a simple pursuit. They manipulated sound, using whistles that mimicked the whizzing of his father when he whipped him with a belt. The rage of him, stones clicked that recalled the locked basement echo. When Thomas stumbled, the group encircled him and whispered old cruelties. "Why do you cry? No one is listening. You make yourself easy to break. All running ends here, Thomas." Sometimes they broke into old nursery rhymes, twisting the lyrics until they spoke of isolation and terror. Some carried dolls with missing eyes, waving them at the edge of Thomas's vision, so he'd mistake them for ghosts or lost innocence. Between moments of running and hiding, Thomas was dragged to a second clearing, forced to kneel while the group circled, chanting his story, his mother's silence, father's fist, the first night beneath the table, the year he tried to starve himself in the woods. They made him repeat it again and again until the memory blurred into nightmare. Every time Thomas begged to leave, one would touch his mouth, smear mud, and saying, "The woods are inside you now. You belong here. Drink again." He refused and fled, but drugs they laced in his cup warred inside him with his own chemical shield, dragging hallucinations and memory together. If he was taught, their group would enact the breaking. He'd be tied to a blackening stump, surrounded by effigies, each wreathed in moss and flickering flame. The leader would recite abuse as literature, whispering that pain is the only true inheritance. They would call forth his old ghost, voices chant his name like a curse, faces shifting with the moon shadows, hands rising from the ground, gripping his ankles. Thomas would fight, but soon the medicines inside him wore down. The wood's own concoctions fusing hallucinations to reality. He saw visions of his family blending into the group, each one smiling with hunger. The final part of the ritual, they pressed a silver of bark to Thomas's tongue, forcing him to swallow. His sense ignited, sight and sound merging, memories and presence blurring. He watched the entire forest pulse with face, each root a memory, each branch a lash, every tree remembering every wound. The group chanted until Thomas felt himself dissolve, part of the woods themselves. The horror was not simply survival under pain, but forced communion with everything that hurt him. Now made holy by the wood's ritual, even if he escaped, as he finally did, bursting toward the farmhouse and civilization, the torchlight snapping out, the cult disappearing, the memories of that night, the rituals in the forest, eternal appetite were carved into his bones. Thomas would never be free. Every whisper of wind through leaves, every damp chill, every flicker of firelight would remind him the woods are inside. They know every wound, every story. They are always hungry.